Devin, it's always good to get together with my Russia hoax friends. You and I were like the OG Russia hoax truthers, and I really learned about this when I saw you travel to the White House when, as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, you learned that President Trump's campaign had been spied upon. And a lot of people don't remember this, but when you did that, the Republican-controlled House Ethics Committee launched an investigation into you and demanded that you recuse yourself from the Russia investigation. You were a voice in the wilderness at times. Now, with all of the information that has come out from Director Gabbard and our former colleague John Ratcliffe, how do you feel about the historical reckoning of the Russia hoax?
Yeah, those were really dark times, Matt, and I was grateful for you and others who stood there, stood tough, and fought this fight, because many people wanted to go along with the fake news that the Russia hoax was actually real. Clearly what came out this week, the report that was released, that was the report that we had completed. Trump had declassified multiple times. It just made its way out. I mean, that's how corrupt things are in Washington. And when people talk about, if you don't think the deep state's real, one would need to go to read that report that now Chairman Rick Crawford from Arkansas has put out, that we did 8 years ago. The fact that this is just getting out now, I think, should raise serious concerns to all Americans. And you ought to take the time to read that report and then ask yourself, why was this classified for so long?
Last evening, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard joined our program exclusively to lay out the origins of the Russia hoax. Every indication is that President Obama was reeling from the loss of Hillary Clinton and convened a December 9, 2024 meeting in the White House Situation Room. He ordered his CIA Director John Brennan, his FBI Director James Comey, and his Director of National Intelligence James Clapper to create an intelligence community assessment that would undermine Trump as some sort of agent of the Russian government. None of it was true, but the lies had massive cost for our nation. Brennan, Clapper, and Comey, they needed some sort of predicate, some basis for illegal spying and a barrage of harmful leaks to the fledgling Trump administration. They needed some basis to make absurd statements like this.
This past weekend is illustrative of what a great case officer Vladimir Putin is. He knows how to handle an asset, and that's what he's doing with the president.
You're saying that Russia is handling President Trump as an asset?
That's the appearance to me.
So to justify this nonsense, they came up with a scheme to portray an unknown Trump campaign policy analyst named George Papadopoulos as the link between Trump and Vladimir Putin. To achieve this, they used a Maltese professor who called himself Dr. Joseph Mifsud. Mifsud curated a relationship with Papadopoulos and told him that Russia had dirt on Hillary Clinton. The Mueller report literally described Mifsud as the individual who triggered the FBI's Crossfire hurricane investigation. This is the crazy part. Mifsud vanished from public view in late 2017. His whereabouts are totally unknown. Some have speculated he was in hiding, protected, or possibly dead, but there's no confirmation. How does someone at the center of the Russia hoax just vanish? He used to work at Link Campus University. Link Campus University has ties to Italian intelligence and hosted several Western intelligence-related conferences, fueling theories that Mifsud was entangled with NATO-aligned intel services. Was Mifsud working for U.S. intel? Christopher Steele was a former MI6 spy. Did Mifsud work for the Brits? Did they have a role in setting up the Russia hoax? One thing is clear. Someone somewhere was running Dr. Joseph Mifsud, and whoever that person is has the entire key to the Russia hoax. The great Jim Jordan knew this when he questioned Robert Mueller.
Papadopoulos tells a diplomat Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary file.
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's the guy who told Papadopoulos. The mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times, and yet you don't charge him with a crime. When the special counsel's office interviewed Mifsud, did he lie to you guys?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Mifsud?
Can't get into that.
Is Mifsud Western intelligence or
Can't get
Russian
into that.
intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into. And the central figure who launches it all lies to us, and you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Mifsud was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news. That's exactly what Bill Barr's doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Jordan told us that John Durham and Bill Barr would unlock the great Mifsud mystery. How did that go?
Mifsud, the person who juices Papadopoulos to create this predicate that you find improper. You guys, did you ever know who his lawyer was, Mifsud's lawyer?
Talked to his lawyer in Europe. I don't know if
So
he
you could find the guy's
United
lawyer,
States.
but you couldn't find him? Did you take possession of 2 BlackBerry phones from Mifsud in any way?
There were phones that were provided to us by
So you could find the
Mifsud's
phones, but
lawyer.
not the guy.
Correct?
Do you see how silly this looks? Like you found the lawyer, you found the phones, but the actual dude who got ordered by Western intelligence to go start this thing you couldn't find? It's kind of laughable. It seems like more than disappointment. It seems like you weren't really trying to expose the true core of the corruption.
I think you can suss out what's going on here. Durham didn't tell us anything about Mifsud because that gets too close. Tulsi Gabbard has been a fearless advocate for the truth and transparency. If anyone can get to the bottom of this, it's Tulsi. Did your investigation reveal who Dr. Mifsud is?
That's not something I've seen come before my desk, but I know that our team, again, on multiple issues, including in election integrity, we're going to continue to investigate, to find the truth and tell the truth.
We are the most powerful country on earth. Grandparents in Homer, Alaska were getting raided by the FBI because someone thought they had Nancy Pelosi's laptop. You can't tell me we can't find this guy. Find Dr. Joseph Mifsud. Find the truth. Go get him, Tulsi. Joining us now, Chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board and CEO of Trump Media and Technology Group, Devin Nunes. And Devin, it's always good to get together with my Russia hoax friends. You and I were like the OG Russia hoax truthers, and I really learned about this when I saw you travel to the White House when, as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, you learned that President Trump's campaign had been spied upon. And a lot of people don't remember this, but when you did that, the Republican-controlled House Ethics Committee launched an investigation into you and demanded that you recuse yourself from the Russia investigation. You were a voice in the wilderness at times. Now, with all of the information that has come out from Director Gabbard and our former colleague John Ratcliffe, how do you feel about the historical reckoning of the Russia hoax?
Yeah, those were really dark times, Matt, and I was grateful for you and others who stood tough, and fought this fight, because many people wanted to go along with the fake news that the Russia hoax was actually real. Clearly what came out this week, the report that was released, that was the report that we had completed. Trump had declassified multiple times. It just made its way out. That's how corrupt things are in Washington. And when people talk about, if you don't think the deep state's real, one would need to go to read that report that now Chairman Rick Crawford from Arkansas has put out, that we did 8 years ago. The fact that this is just getting out now, I think, should raise serious concerns to all Americans. And you ought to take the time to read that report and then ask yourself, why was this classified for so long? So I'm really thankful for Director Tulsi Gabbard's support in getting this out. I think she's bringing a level of transparency to this. And of course, the big question everybody asks is, is the Department of Justice going to be able to take this and hold some of these criminals, and I say criminals because I referred many of them, as you are well aware, back in 2017 and 18, who've never faced serious justice.
And how would you rate that criminal acuity with some of the top members of President Obama's team?
Well, the one thing that I didn't have that Director Gabbard was able to acquire that was released about a week ago was the information of the Presidential Daily Brief, PDB, but I won't use the acronyms. But basically, this is the briefing that the president's supposed to get. Matt, one of the reasons I knew that the Russia hoax was a hoax right at the beginning is because right after the 2016 election, the House Intelligence Committee that I was chairing, we were one of the first to be briefed by the FBI and the intelligence agencies about the election. This is a common briefing. It happens every election. The House Intelligence Committee, Senate Intelligence Committee gets these briefings. Well, at that briefing, we were told that nothing unusual happened. And in fact, when I read the PDB, it jogged my memory to say, wow, I heard that before. I heard it actually right after the election around Thanksgiving. And then now we know, leading up to December 9th, meetings occur. Obama, and look, he was responsible. He was in the meeting. He was the president. Now, who brought him the idea? Who initiated it? I don't really care. I just want to make sure that everyone is held accountable. And hopefully they're, as they start to look at all of this, and I really see this as one giant hoax, okay? So it's not just about the Russia hoax. You will remember well the Ukraine impeachment hoax.
Yes.
The Hunter Biden laptop hoax. I mean, we can go on and on about hoaxes. These are all done by the same people, and they should all be held accountable. And so it'll be interesting to see, and I say, the biggest hoax of all the things, there's lots of them, but of this giant hoax was the raid at Mar-a-Lago. And I think that could hold some keys, whatever evidence can be found there and how it relates to all of this, which is essentially just a get Trump hoax all in one. Hopefully they can find some information there, and then everybody you can lump all of this in. You're the lawyer, not me, but this is conspiracy. It's a quintessential definition of conspiracy. And ironically, my criminal referrals that I made, many of them actually were based in what Jack Smith went after Donald Trump for. So it's the age-old Washington establishment that whatever they accuse you of doing, they're actually doing themselves. So they went and took what they were doing, went after Trump on it with the Jack Smith special counsel. And so now we know that can be used because the Department of Justice just tried to use it on someone. Well, and so hopefully they will.
Yeah,
yep.
we also know that what they accused Trump of doing, they were doing vis-a-vis Russia. You and Kash Patel showed the country that when you peeled back the onion on the Steele dossier, it was actually Russian intelligence infected subsources that were providing those lies about Donald Trump. And one thing that I've never really gotten to the bottom of, we've had the Oversight Committee investigate, the Judiciary Committee, the Intelligence Committee, John Durham's investigated, Tulsi Gabbard's investigated. No one has ever said who was running this mysterious character, Dr. Joseph Mifsud. Mifsud is the person who ignites this interest around George Papadopoulos. Mr. Chairman, who do you believe was actually running Mifsud?
Well, so just a little background. So Mifsud, that all occurred early 2016. And I was surprised, and I don't know if this was part of the scope of Durham's investigation, but we could never get any information about that, right? But there was lots of circumstantial evidence around, that this guy, he was a Maltese professor. He was clearly involved in trying to lure some of the Trump people into doing bad things. And it gets to the question of who got Carter Page to go to London. All of that happened, and for sure there were Brits involved, there were Australians involved, and I say Brits and Australians. I don't know if they were real intelligence, pretending to be intelligence. I know that Durham and Barr, we know this from media reports, they took a trip to Italy. I don't know if that was to figure out what the hell Mifsud was doing, but regardless, we know it's always appeared to me, and this is not fact, this is just me speculating over years of following this, is that somebody from our side, probably the Clinton campaign and the DNC, possibly working with our FBI, set up a whole set of bait out there so that they could try to get Trump people to follow into that bait, so that then they could use that as a predicate to launch a Russia hoax investigation. The damnedest part of all of it, Matt, is that nobody actually took any of the bait. Right, and what they did, like with Carter Page, that was a setup. He didn't take any of the bait. He didn't have anything. Remember, we had to go through and get all the transcripts of those recordings that they recorded Carter Page painfully over multiple meetings when he was meeting with the FBI. And Carter Page, said things like, I don't know anything about Russia. I can't remember verbatim everything he said. And then they went to the FISA court, lied about what he had said, because he had actually said the opposite. He didn't have any information about Russia. And so it was a big setup job. And, the very few people that Durham actually prosecuted, the one guy that falsified the FISA, this guy named Kevin Kleinsmith, he ends up getting a slap on the wrist, and it ends up with a corrupt D.C. judge named Boasberg, who's involved in all of this swampy stuff that goes on here in our nation's capital. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's come of this. I think most alarmingly has been now this is reached, it's percolated up into the court system, not only here in Washington, but all over America.
You know a lot of these stories of whistleblowers who were objecting to what Brennan was doing as it related to the Steele dossier's inclusion in the Intelligence Committee assessment. Do you think those witnesses would do well in testimony before open house hearings? And is that a process that you think could bring some clarity to what was obviously a very corrupt operation?
Well, one of the things, it's funny you bring this up. So if you look through our report that we did, that was just released this week, in there you'll see that we were able to interview several analysts from the CIA. What we were not able to interview were the people from the FBI that were involved in some of this.
Oh.
And so, I think as this strike force that the Department of Justice has now put together, that would be where I would start, is, right there. There's a bunch of FBI agents that were involved in this, probably never interviewed by Durham, and try to get to the bottom of, because this was manipulation of intelligence for political purposes, Matt. And by the way, right after that December 9th meeting, and right after multiple leaks came out, that going back to 2016, sorry, I want to keep all the dates clear. So after the election, we're briefed, no Russians, no nothing happened. It was changed by Team Obama. And right at that point, I put out multiple press releases that said things like, what's happening here could be intelligence, could be manipulated for political purposes. And, I'm not trying to do I told you so, but there were many of us who were saying that this was happening. So not only did we warn about it, we notified all the intelligence agencies, including the CIA, that said you could be manipulating intelligence. So, and then they went ahead, they didn't give a damn, and they manipulated the intelligence anyway.
Jeez.
After they were warned by me as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So, and then they lied about it to Congress multiple times.
Yeah,
so
the reason that's important is it sets up
there's plenty.
Yeah, it's important because it sets up the mens rea for the mentality to be held criminally accountable for your conduct. Somebody can't say that, they didn't know if this was true or false. They were receiving those warnings directly from you. Final question for you, Mr. Chairman. The media, they were so intertwined in the selling of this lie. What reckoning do you think befalls the mainstream media after their twisting and turning on the Russia hoax?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Some people say, well, there was this bipartisan Senate report that came out that was and they looked into this. Well, what do we know about the Senate report? We know that the Senate security director in charge of security at the Senate Intelligence Committee was sleeping with a reporter. So, this is the press has lost everything, Matt. I think the one thing that you're seeing happen is that the media is blowing up, blowing apart. Companies like One America News that we're working with, putting on my other hat with our new streaming product, we're now getting One America News and other news agencies that have been canceled or silenced. We're getting that out into the mainstream of the American public. Not only that, we're getting it out worldwide. And so I think that this is going to continue to change. Places like OAN are going to be that speak truth to power. It's a real opportunity, I think, for these news agencies that have been trying to do real news to get out there and overtake these news companies that, quite frankly, are losing money. You just saw, I know it's not news, but it's definitely propaganda. You just saw that Colbert, he's gone. I think you're going to see many more of these people are going to be gone. And it's going to be a great opportunity, I think, over the course of the next few years with technology that we've built at Trump Media for companies and news agencies like One America News to ride on top of that technology and reach more and more people, which is what we need. At the end of the day, if you speak truth to power and people have transparency and they know what actually happened, having an educated populace, I think will do this country, a lot of good. We need a fresh perspective. We need young people to be getting real information in a time that it's difficult to get that because of the legacy fake news, coupled with the social media companies that do bad things, coupled with now artificial intelligence, which is almost impossible to know what's real or not real anymore.
No, well, we are incredibly proud of our partnership with Trump Media Group here at One America News. Devin Nunes, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, currently the CEO of Trump Media Group. Thanks as always for coming on the program and sharing your expertise.